For today's video, we're going to be comparing the iPhone 15 versus the iPhone 13.
Trey, excuse me, why are you just skipping the 14 in the middle?
Oh, sorry, Mini-Me. It's mainly because I just don't think the 14 is worth considering.
I think you should be comparing the 13 Pro Max to the 15 Pro Max.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, yeah. The 13 Pros, while Apple doesn't sell them anymore, there's still some good...
But quite frankly, since Apple didn't do very much with the USB-C port, you should still be considering the 14 Pro Max, which is probably going to be available soon for certified refurbished with all of the different trade-in deals going on.
That's true. That's a good comparison. We might have to do a separate video on the...
But also, Apple unrightfully discontinued the 13 Mini, so I think we should also be considering how much the 13 Mini is going for, as well as the 12 Mini, which is still getting iOS 17 support.
Shut up! Wow, you just spit me in my eye. I'm done with you. 15 and 13. Let's begin. I feel like I could almost do an entire video on explaining why these two iPhones should be the most worth your consideration, but I thought they would be the most common ones, because of course the pros out there, y'all are just buying whatever you want. Y'all just spend all the money on the best possible iPhone. I don't think there's that much of a comparison, and I don't feel the need to do a 14 Pro versus 15 Pro video, because I just feel like that's helping rich people justify their rich toys. So the everyday people are more likely to be considering the more budget-friendly options, of course, and while we talked a lot about all of the changes with the iPhone 15 lineup, we didn't talk about the rest of the lineup, which means, you know, iPhones that Apple is still manufacturing, iPhones that Apple is still selling, and will continue to sell into 2024, and yes, sadly, the 13 Mini is no more, which I used to say not too long ago is the best new iPhone you can buy. So no more new 13 Minis to choose from, and while I still highly encourage you to look around, shop around on Amazon, eBay, seriously, certified refurbished from either of those places is not going to be that bad. They'll have better return policies than what Apple has, and you'll find way lower prices than what you'll get from Apple. But I know a lot of you guys don't even like considering secondhand and refurbished because that gets too niche and that gets too specific. So the reason I settled on iPhone 15 versus 13 is because I think this is what most people should be debating. The iPhone 12 is no longer available new from Apple either. The iPhone SE is just way too expensive for what it is that I can't recommend anybody buy that new. Of course, the SE2 is so similar anyway, and you can find it for less than half the price now. But the iPhone 13, in my opinion, is still a great buy, and they reduced the price of it by another $100, now starting at $599, and of course, with the iPhone 15 starting at $799. Then why is the obvious question, are we not acknowledging the iPhone 14? Well, in my opinion, it was by far the smallest iPhone upgrade of all time. Didn't even get a new generation of Apple Silicon, still went A15 to A15. Camera layout's the same, displays are the same. So little differences between those two that if you're thinking that the iPhone 15 is not worth it and you might want to go with a 14, just go straight to the 13, okay? If you're comfortable with the 14, I'm sure you'll be comfortable with the 13. It's practically the same phone, just $100 less. And if you're thinking about the 14 Plus, because yes, that did technically get a $100 price reduction, just get a refurbished 13 Pro Max. And if 60 Hz doesn't bother you all that much, then there's plenty of 12 Pro Maxes to choose from on Apple's certified refurbished page. That will give you 60 Hz and steel and probably a better camera overall. And it's still got lightning, because if you're considering a 14 Plus, you must like lightning to a certain extent. So just as a refresher and a reminder to everybody, even though the iPhone 14s have been discounted, I'm still not recommending you buy any of those under any circumstances. So the best debate, like the two peak iPhones that are factoring in value in features and bargain that I think are worth considering, are the regular iPhone 15, because it got a decent number of upgrades this year that we were not always anticipating. You know, they were rumored, but you never quite know if they're actually going to make it. But the 48 megapixel sensor allows for that 2x button, even though it's just a digital zoom. They gave it the frosted glass on the back, which is a welcome change, a bit more curvature in the chassis to make it more comfortable, and USB-C, as you know, my favorite feature, because this is the best connector and this is the best port, allowing you to charge other devices. And also, apparently, the output is limited to 4.5 watts, but that should be enough to charge another iPhone if you want to. It won't charge it very quickly, but it should be possible. Whichever iPhone has the higher state of charge, that one will charge the other iPhone, and if it's a Lightning iPhone, it will always charge it. So kind of unknown, underrated features of USB-C on the 15. And the regular 15, not only did it get the chip upgrade with A16 now instead of A15, it also got the dynamic Island, which for some of you might be kind of a flashy wow feature for live activities and different notifications when you're flipping that ringer switch back and forth or dropping it on a MagSafe charger. These are things that you used to have to buy a 14 Pro for, but at $799 you'll probably have a difficult time finding a 14 Pro for that cheap. So if the Dynamic Island was like the big headlining feature you were looking for, this is still, for a while, probably going to be the cheapest way to access it. And the other surprise big update with the 15 was the substantially brighter display, now matching the same brightness of the 15 Pros, which definitely makes them feel not as special, I guess. ProMotion, that's all they got going for them now. So now the question with all of those upgrades on the 15 is if you're rocking an iPhone XR or older, or an iPhone 11 like I am, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, should I make the jump to the 15 just to future-proof myself so I have USB-C, so I have a bright display, and I've got a next-generation chip? Or do I need to save myself some money? Maybe you want to buy a new iPhone and a new pair of AirPods Pro with Type-C. Or maybe an Apple Watch SE is in the cards for you. You want to save yourself some money and still get an upgrade, but maybe the 15 is just a little bit more overkill than you'd think. Then the iPhone 13, I think you honestly can't go that much wrong with, because it's $599 now and it's 128 gigs by default. Thankfully, we got that iPhone 12 64 gig option out of the way. iPhone 13 still has an amazing camera with cinematic mode, the ultra-wide lens just like the 15, and while yes, it has the more dated lightning port, that will probably continue to charge with whatever you're currently charging your iPhone with. You don't have to buy a new cable or a new charge brick if you're the kind of person that's still rocking your old-fashioned 5-watt to USB-A lightning cable. I know, there's still a lot of those floating out there. That's kind of the annoying part if you end up going for the iPhone 15. It comes with a USB-C braided cable in the box, which is nice, but not a 20-watt USB-C charge brick. So if you buy an iPhone 15 and you were just relying on that good old trusty 5-watt brick, you're actually going to need a new brick because there's no other adapters Apple includes in the box. Whereas that iPhone 13, yeah, that's still going to work with all of your existing Lightning accessories. It still has an amazing display. It was the first time they shrunk the notch down a bit, and from my own personal experience, the Dynamic Island is cool. It's flashy. Like, the first time you boot up a phone, you notice, hey, this is a 15 or a 14 Pro, because only those newer iPhones got that Dynamic Island. But in day-to-day use, I found that it didn't really add too much to the experience. There were not a lot of third-party apps that were taking advantage of the Dynamic Island in my experience, and I got bored with it fairly quickly the last time I reviewed a 14 Pro. I was like, you know what? It's cool when it's animating and doing something, but a lot of the time it's not. And then it's just this giant pill that sits there when you're watching videos or playing games, and it actually cuts into content a little bit more than the notch does, which might be one reason if you're looking for a perk to sway you over to the iPhone 13 as well. If we're talking about superficial differences, in my opinion, the iPhone 13 has the far better color choices. Better than the iPhone 14 for sure, but also the iPhone 15 series. I guess the black option is pretty good looking, but all of those others are so faded. Apple calls this blue, and it is anything but. It is just, you know, like a white iPhone, but you're thinking of the color blue in the back of your head. That's what the iPhone 15 looks like. That's the one I'm gonna be checking out later this week. But that product red on the iPhone 13, oh my gosh, it is peak red. I don't think I've ever seen a better red iPhone in my life. It's a fantastic color option. It's still got that matte aluminum on the side. The battery life is pretty much on par with the iPhone 15 as well. So there's a lot of great things still going for the iPhone 13. Honestly, I think if you're just not really in love with all of the new flashy features, whether that be USB-C or the Dynamic Island or a 48 megapixel sensor or a frosted glass back, then the iPhone 13 is definitely a great way to save yourself some money and still have a pretty flagship premium phone that is brand new. If you care so much about making sure you get a brand new iPhone that is still being manufactured by Apple. And I suppose if you want to fall for a lot of the guilt marketing that Apple loves to push so much, the iPhone 15 series does have that SOS satellite functionality where it can communicate with satellites if you're out of service somewhere. You can send emergency text messages. The iPhone 13 technically doesn't have that. Hopefully Starlink can get their act together soon, because they planned on bringing emergency SOS features to all iPhones iPhones, not just the new ones. But yeah, the iPhone 15 also has car crash detection. If you're in the very specific scenario of you're in a car crash and you're incapacitated, then the phone can dial 911, assuming you have cellular service in that exact situation. It doesn't have to happen a lot, but Apple just has to plant that seed in your head that there's a greater than 0% chance of that happening. So if you really care about your life and your health, you'll buy an iPhone 15. If you don't care about living, then I guess the iPhone 13 might be better for you.
Wow.
But both have very similar front-facing cameras, rear-facing cameras. Both support MagSafe. Both have the same wireless charging capability and fast wired charging capability. Yes, even though the 15 has USB-C, it doesn't charge up any faster than a 13. So honestly, I think this is the debate that the vast majority of average consumers are going to have, and in my opinion, there isn't really a clear winner. It all just depends on your specific situation. It depends on the carriers you're with, what trade-in deals are they offering, what promos are going on, and what is your current iPhone. You know, obviously, if you just bought an iPhone 12 not too long ago, then just buying a whole new iPhone 13 may not feel like that big of an upgrade. So maybe you want to treat yourself, go up to a 15 so that it feels a bit more future-proof and that you can hold on to it for a while. There's so many edge cases, there's so many variables. I don't know each of your financial situations, but I would say if there's some money that you still need for, you know, college, it could be textbooks or savings, or maybe you've got some credit card payments to pay off and that kind of thing, definitely try to be more responsible and go with a cheaper iPhone, preferably used if you're willing to go that route. But if you feel like you've got a little bit more money than you expected at this time of year and you've got a little bit more cash to spend, then sure, the iPhone 15 is probably a lot more future-proof because it's got that new charge port, it's got the dynamic island, and it's got a brand new chip in it. So the true answer that makes the most sense for you comes down to your situation, which I don't know. But to me, these are the two headliners that most people should be debating. If you want a Pro that you just got tons of money, good for you, I'm happy. But also, nobody buy the 15 Plus, by the way, because that encourages Apple to keep making Plus iPhones, and I want them to bring the minis back. Oh my god, if I hear any whiff of an iPhone 16 mini possibly coming out, then I'm definitely not upgrading this year. This is like a no-go for sure, because I want a mini iPhone with USB-C, and I'm upset and frustrated that there's a possibility that won't happen. I don't know, which iPhone would you guys choose? What's your game plan for this Friday's launch? All that good stuff, let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Shape here, and I will see you all in the next one.